sports are really important vehicles for relationships.
We have purpose. We have a why. We bring people together. We connect.
I feel like God is our greatest supporter and our greatest coach.
Welcome to Rabbi on the Sidelines. This is Rabbi Era Sherman from Sinai Temple in Los Angeles, and this week we are joined by Emily Austin, journalist, social media influencer, Israel advocate, and this is the one that I love, just an awesome person. Emily, it's great to see you. I saw you just a couple of weeks ago in Miami with our good friend Enes Freedom. We'll talk about him a little later and the project that you're dealing with. But you are a young advocate who is a star on social media and who is not afraid to use her words in order to make a difference in this world.
Thank you.
So
Sweet.
we are sitting in a sanctuary, even though it doesn't look like a sanctuary to those watching online, but we are in a house that really believes in what you're doing, and specifically about the people of Israel. So I want to begin with your journey. I like to say that we go from the ordinary to the sacred. So the ordinary, you grew up as a Long Island Jew with a strong Jewish identity, with parents who are Israeli, but not necessarily an identity that says, I'm going to take this public. What did that look like growing up in Long Island?
I coined the term, I'm sure I'm not the first one to use it, but I considered myself a complacent Jew growing up, meaning I was taught that I was Jewish. We were always kosher in the house. We never necessarily were Shomer Shabbat, but we knew we couldn't go out on Shabbat. We couldn't go out Friday nights. And that was just the norm. And in my neighborhood, Hewlett, we call it Jewlit as a joke. If you weren't Jewish, they were cool. There was never anti-Semitism around. And I really think what changed my life. Now, okay, we were also Zionists, meaning every Yom HaAtzmaut, we had cupcakes and we celebrated, and falafel and tchina, very stereotypical. But I remember what pivoted was when I went to Poland, and that traumatized me. But I remember after Poland, my brother and I, we went together. He wore a shirt every day that said Shomer Achi, and I wore a shirt that said I love Israel, and vice versa. We'd swap shirts. And one day we were in Rome. My parents were like, hey, don't wear that in public. My brother's like, why? And my mom's like, because someone's going to attack you. So dafka, which means on purpose, we wore it. And my brother's walking the streets of Rome with I Heart Israel. My parents are really thinking we were about to get attacked. And for me, being 16, that was sad and scary, especially coming right after Poland where I'm saying never again. And my parents were like, hey, take that shirt off, tuck the star, just be safe. Your safety's first. And I was like, we have a problem.
And what happened? Were you attacked, or did anybody else come up there and sort of identify we're with you? What happened in Rome?
Really nothing. One thing happened that wasn't so bad, but on the cruise, there was an Italian boy who wasn't anti-Semitic. He was really misinformed, which was a second eye-opener. He walks up to us and said, where's your tattoo?
Wow.
So I'm thinking, I didn't even realize, I didn't put two and two together. He said, where's your barcode? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, Hitler, since Hitler, all the Jews get barcodes. And my brother was about to punch him. And I said, Joey, I don't think he's being rude. I think he actually thinks we all have barcodes. So I showed him my wrist. My brother showed him his wrist. And he goes, well, I see you don't have horns.
Wow.
And then I'm like, but I'm telling you, he wasn't being anti-Semitic. He was taught we all had horns and barcodes. And we hear of this. But in America, you don't really see it in live time. But I guess in Italy, they think we still have horns.
And so you talked about being complacent, which I think as an American Jewish community, up until October 6th, a lot of us were. You talked about the miseducation or misinformation of people around the world about who we are as Jews. I'm going to fast forward because we're going to see a clip right now. You were just on Piers Morgan last year, and you weren't by yourself. You were with somebody, let's say it's on the other side, and you were prepared. When you go on shows like this, and we'll watch the clip in a second, who is your audience? Are you looking to just take down the other person? By the end of this Piers Morgan segment, there was no discussion at all. Piers had to just shut it down.
Yeah.
When you go on talk shows like this and really high-level profile, what's your purpose? What's the mission?
So many people don't know. I didn't know who I was debating on Piers. They said you're going to have a conversation about Israel versus Palestine, and this is your chance to debunk all the narratives. And I'm like, fantastic. Now, little did I know, the girl on Pierce, Nardine, her name is, she's a vile human being, wouldn't even look me in the eye. She said she doesn't want to speak to a genocide denier, and physically went like this, to not look at me. And needless to say, if you watch it, there's no dialogue happening. But my perspective is I don't know who's watching. It could be people who agree with me, it could be people who hate me, or people who don't care. So I don't care who it is. To all of them, my message remains the same. Like, this is my truth and the truth about Israel and the Jewish people. And now you're hearing it. And then she gives her truth, which is every Jew deserves to die. So I hope nobody agreed with her. But for me, it is a good opportunity to get my voice to people who otherwise wouldn't have heard it. Because, like, if you don't follow me on Instagram, if you're not one of the followers, how do you hear my truth?
One of the 2.1 million, by the way.
Yeah, there's many people who are not following me. It was a really cool opportunity to, not once, but 3 times go out there and have the chance to defend Israel. And I was honestly, like, just honored that it was me.
So we're going to look at that clip because you did something really interesting that I want to ask you about after. So this is Emily Austin on Piers Morgan.
And contrary to what Nardine just said, there is no equivalency. This is not a hostage exchange. This is an exchange of criminals for children. Okay, these are babies who are being held captive for someone who tried to stab a soldier. Another baby for another woman who tried to stab a soldier. Another baby whose crime was being a Jew versus another woman who tried to stab another soldier. Versus another baby whose crime is being an Israeli who was released for a woman who tried to stab a soldier. So I'm sorry, this is not a hostage exchange. This is a criminal exchange for our civilians back who are taken out of their homes.
How did you decide to do that, to be prepared to bring these posters so people could literally see what's in your heart and soul?
Because too often I'm faced with, I'm telling you a fact that's been proven, and you're like, no, it's not. Not you, but the other side, we can call it. They're like, no, it's not. That's not true. So now I'm going to show you photos of women who were caught on video stabbing Israeli soldiers, and I'm going to show you babies who are in Gaza. It's a little bit harder to say, that's not true when I'm putting it in your face with photo evidence. There was another example on Pierce. I don't know if it was the same interview. She said, and I knew she was going to say it, so I had the video ready on my phone. She said, you guys tortured and imprisoned a 14-year-old innocent boy, Muhammad.
Right, and then you showed him stabbing.
I was like, this is the 14-year-old innocent boy stabbing a soldier. Is that innocent to you? She was speechless. And I think when you meet them with facts, which is a lot of times I tell high school kids this, I'm like, if you're going to fight on my Instagram comments for me, I appreciate it, but fight with facts. Don't curse each other out because you're not making a difference. But have the facts on your side and present them. And if they deny it at that point, they look stupid. So a rabbi in Puerto Rico told me this. He said, don't tell people why.
A rabbi in Puerto Rico? That sounds like a great gig.
Yeah. He's in Chabad of San Juan. He was like, you can't tell people why they're wrong. You have to show them. And that actually resonated with me.
And so one of the things that you were shown was, of course, you just mentioned before, the concentration camps. There's a clip of you doing an interview in the Jewish Journal, which says that trip really changed your life and not necessarily woke you up, but allowed you to understand that using communications you can make a difference. So this is Emily Austin in the Jewish Journal interview just a couple of months ago.
But the concentration camps like messed me up mentally so bad. I didn't even enjoy Israel. I was so mentally ill. Like, I had fever. I couldn't stomach what I had just seen in Poland. And I couldn't possibly enjoy myself after that. But it's fine because it was crucial for me to see, because subconsciously it took me a long time to realize where my pride came from, and I can definitely accredit seeing what could have been and then seeing how we came through that. And that just made me proud to have overcame such an atrocity like the Holocaust, and getting through something like that showed we can get through anything.
We got through that, we can get through anything. I took that trip 3 times, leading teenagers on that trip, and then going to Israel, most of these kids, 2005, in Israel for the first time. How can we get through anything the way that we are getting through things today, based on that experience you had in Poland?
I mean, Poland was just, and it's crazy because I've learned about the Holocaust prior to visiting it, but to see it and like, here's why it hurt me so bad. I assured myself this could never happen again because the world wouldn't let it happen. You know, then there were no cell phones, there was no proof. This could never happen again. And I dug into it a little bit deeper and actually spoke to like politicians and people who were involved post-World War II. And they were like, Emily, everybody knew. Like everyone knew and no one cared because it didn't benefit them to liberate the Jews. And that felt like a knife that's still like wedged in my heart because now never again happened on a smaller scale again. And it almost did wake me up in a way where it's like, okay, I know we can get through it, but I think, I don't want to say we're on our own. We do have allies and we do have a lot of friends.
Talk
but
about allies in a second, specifically in the sports world. Exactly.
Right. And I just think we can't rely on others. We need to take matters into our own hands. And the more friends and allies we have along the way, great. But we need to take action. And like, if it's not us, then who? So that's how
If
I
not
think now.
when, as
Exactly.
we learned in Pirkei Avot. It's actually interesting. In Auschwitz, you see that map, and the question is, if these train tracks were bombed and the trains couldn't get there, what would have happened? And so that moment sort of allowed you to take this path. I believe you were going to go into the professions of medicine. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Me too. And look at this. We're on a sports talk show in a synagogue. How things change. But you fell in love with communications when you went to Hofstra. COVID sort of was a blessing in terms professionally that you started doing Instagram Live with NBA players. Let's talk about the sports world. I love sports. Our community loves sports. The world loves sports. What did you find in the sports world that eventually brought you back to doing advocacy again? What was so great about the sports world that you love so much?
Oh, there's so much. But in terms of the advocacy, I mean, first things first, I grew up playing tennis, and it was very isolating, and it's not a team sport, and there's no friends, you could say, in tennis. Everyone's your enemy. Everyone wants to find your weakness and use it against you. But when I started watching basketball, there was two things I loved: the teamwork and the community around it, like the fans. So I became a Heat fan, then a Knicks fan, and whatever. But what I loved the most
And the
was
Knicks
when
growing up for you, not so great.
I was a Heat fan growing up, you could
Okay,
say,
got
and
it.
then when I settled in New York, when I stopped playing tennis, you can't sit at the Garden and not fall in love. Whether they win
true.
or lose, like you're sitting there, you're like, wow, what a game. They lost by 70. Yeah, but still, what a game,
This year it's good. Jalen
This year it's
Brunson,
fine.
Rhodes, it's all good.
I didn't notice till I worked in it how beautiful it was. And when I say beautiful, I mean, like, I guess I'll share it through a story. I told you growing up I never worked Friday night. My first job ever in basketball was with the Nets, and it was on a Friday night. And my parents were like, we're leaving it up to you. We're not going to tell you what to do. So obviously I went. I feel bad. But to really, really make me like feel super guilty, the food there was all not kosher, meaning like there wasn't even like a vegetarian option. It was chicken parm or like bacon cheese. And I was like, great. So now I'm working on Shabbat and I'm starving to death. Awesome. So I was pretty cranky visibly that night because I just felt very guilty. And a player on the sideline, Rabbi on the sideline, approached me and he's like, why aren't you eating? You're so skinny. And I was like, oh, I keep kosher. And he said, what's kosher? And I was like, what? I said, do you know what halal is? And he said, yeah.
Wow.
So I said, so kosher is halal's, Jews
Equivalent,
halal,
right.
And he was like, I had never heard of it in my life. And I'm like, where'd you grow up? And we got into a whole conversation about it. And I was like, A, how cool he was like open-minded enough to want to learn about it. And then B, he was very, he received it well. He was like, good to know. Like, I'll remember that now. My agent's Jewish, which is funny because a lot of them are. But
Yep.
that really showed me that tiny little insignificant experience for me was like, whoa, I could teach other people about Judaism. And like, if they feel like teaching me about their religion, I'm, all ears. And there was a lot more stories like that one where I taught people about Judaism. And I'm not the most Orthodox Jew, but it was nice to see that they were receptive to it. And I realized I could use sports as a very organic way to build bridges, which everybody says, but
it's harder
have
to
to do it,
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And I've watched you do that even on one of your episodes with Meta World Peace, right? Talking about the malice in the palace. But as I like to say on this show, it's not about the box scores and the trade deadlines. It's about what's in our heart and soul.
Yeah.
And when you ask somebody what's really in their heart and soul, they pour it out in a way that they need it. It's almost like mental health therapy in a spiritual sense as well. And so you start this during COVID. It's Instagram Live. I actually started this podcast during COVID as well.
Oh,
we had
cool.
nothing to do.
Right.
We realized if we talk to people and share these stories, it was really going to make a difference. And so eventually you get to NBA player and it's freedom.
Yeah.
What was that connection? And we're going to talk about what you're doing together now.
Yeah, so he's so funny. He tells everyone, oh, she slid in my DMs. I was like, no, I was starting a sports show, and I asked people if they were willing to come on. So I'll backtrack with the Knicks story. So I knew Enes from the Knicks, and I was arguably at every Knicks game in high school. I was just like a big fan, and I worked, and every weekend would go to a Knicks game. And this is a silly story, but this is actually how I got into my career. I literally snuck down courtside one game, Tracy Morgan sitting celebro. And I'm like, Tracy, like a crazy person, Tracy, like, hi. And he's like, what's your name? What do you do? By the way, I'm filming The Last OG tomorrow. You should like come to set. I told him like I applied for a role, whatever. It was a long story. I ended up going on the set of The Last OG and I played like a model in his show.
Wow.
So Tracy was a diehard Knicks fan. Tracy starts telling everyone, yo, like future Miss New York is here. And I get some followers on Instagram, including some Knicks players started following me. So when I wanted to start this podcast, I was like, okay, let me message some of the people I met that day. And then I remember NS because this is so embarrassing for him, but when I was in high school, I think like a freshman, Knicks did Hanukkah night.
Nice.
And when me and my
We do
friends
that here too with the
came,
Clippers. Yep.
it's very cool. So when my friends and I went, I didn't know who he was, but I remember somebody whispering, he's Muslim. And I was like, what is a Muslim doing Knicks Hanukkah night? So I was like very wowed by that. And, I just never thought much of it until that moment came where I was like, who do I interview? And I was like, that was interesting. Let me see if he's willing to come on the show.
Wow.
And it was COVID. You have anything else better to do, you're lying. So he came on, and that was the first episode, and it went very well.
So we had an opportunity to have Ennis Freedom here a couple of years ago, and he shared his story. And a couple of people actually said, I only have a few minutes. I'm going to come in. And 2 hours later, they were still sitting at the table. I said, why are you still here? They said, we cannot leave to hear this man's story.
Wow.
And then Ennis came to on the show, and then speaking about Hanukkah.
The dreidel.
Yeah, we had Dreidel Mania here at Sinai Temple, and Ennis was being honored for Stand With Us, and I said, come, and Ennis said, well, I never heard of this game, Dreidel. I sent him a YouTube, and then you told me that you were actually on Zoom with us as well.
Ennis sends me a Zoom link, he said, join. I didn't get any context. I see everyone spinning dreidel, so I'm like, I'll spin too.
That's amazing. So I want to go forward for just a moment. That happened a couple weeks ago, something just magical. I wrote about it in the New York Daily News. It was called Love You Too. And I got a text from our common friend, Tamir Goodman, the Jewish
Love
Jordan,
him.
who brought Ophir Engel, a hostage who was in Gaza for 54 days. And he was brought to the All-Star game. I say that because you tricked me at the end of the story. And they wanted to meet Ernie Johnson. They went up, they met him, and they got a picture of him on the desk. I sent a text to you, and you said, I quote, I don't mean to basically steal your thunder, but I brought Ophir Engel to the All-Star game.
That was my pettiness coming out.
That was amazing, though, because then you told me the story. How is it now that you, a 22-year-old Instagram star in Long Island, have the ability to bring Ophir Engel, an 18-year-old young man who was held hostage with his girlfriend's father, Yossi Sharabi of blessed memory, who was killed in Gaza, to the NBA All-Star game to live out his dream? How does that work?
So first things first, thank you to Tamir, because I think October 8th, Tamir posted on his story that Ophir was kidnapped. And not that he was more special than any of the other hostages, but just the common denominator of the basketball fans. It really hurt to just watch that. And I guess everyone adopted a hostage in a way, but Ophir was kind of my adopted hostage. And I asked Tamir if he could connect me with Ophir's dad, who then Tamir told me works at Shalva,
which
who
is an
I
amazing
did a
organization.
sports camp with Tamir with at Shalva for disabled
very near
kids.
and dear to my heart.
I love them. So, long story short, we weren't sure if Ophir would come home or not. And when I found out he was, I was like, well, I made a promise to myself that if he came back, I would do something nice for him. Wow. So, I go to his house in Israel. I have a sit down with him. And I'm like, so what do you want to do? And he's like, I want to meet Luka Doncic. I want to go to All-Star game. And I'm like, done. And I was like, oh my God, how do I make this happen? But I was like, yeah, you got it. So I asked a couple people for Adam Silver's phone number.
Because that's just the normal thing to do these days.
Well, NBA players all have it. I didn't have it. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Like, what do I have to lose? So I call him. And he's like, who's this? And I was like, hi, you don't know me. My name's Emily Austin. I'm going to cut to the chase. I promised a former hostage in Gaza I'd take him to All-Star. I don't have the means to do so. Can you help? He texts me Mike Bass and writes his email and wrote he can help. Mike is the communications director for the NBA. I thought I'd have to like beg and sell the story. I get on the phone with Mike. He's like, yeah, Adam told me. So how many tickets do you need?
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh my God, this is insane. But now I promised Luka. So who did I call for that? This guy who works like with Mark Cuban. Mark knows who I am. We follow one another. But I called like his staff because that's if you really want to get things done.
Yep.
They're like, sure, date and time. So I was like, I think when something's meant to be, it just happens easily. So thanks to that, so once Ophir got to All-Star and everyone saw him, like Tamir and Happy Walters, they gave this kid the experience of a lifetime. And I saw the pictures. I couldn't go, unfortunately, but they looked amazing. And Tamir hooked him up, and Happy hooked him up, and the Pacers. It was just like a dream come true. For me to watch it, it was a dream.
When we got him on the set with Ernie Johnson and the Inside the NBA, Ernie posted, and I asked, could I post? And he reposted my tweet, and
wow.
he said, I did not realize that my All-Star game weekend was going to end like this, but it has impacted me in ways that I will never know.
Wow, I need to see that tweet.
And so to hear that, understanding how it all started is really an amazing thing about what you said, building these relationships in order to, we can say all we want, but in order to make things happen, you actually have to push send on those texts as well. Just a couple of weeks ago, you were on the Rubin Report, and you talked about the politicization of sports, specifically during the bubble, and then when it comes to Israel, sometimes we like it and sometimes we don't. So this is what you said just 3 weeks ago on the Rubin Report.
Call my own hypocrisy. I was like, stop making it so political. But I loved how they stood up for Israel, the NBA. Most of the teams did, and the NBA actually put out a statement, and LeBron put out a statement that got so much hate, and they stuck by their statement. They didn't delete it like Kylie Jenner did. So I was like, oh my God, yay, they made a statement. And I was like, damn it, didn't I just tell them to stay out of it?
First of all, what you're wearing on that show with your shirt of full Israeli flag, your dog tag, even that just sends a statement. So we wear all these dog tags, but NBA is making statements. It doesn't necessarily have a blue ribbon on the court right now. But what have you seen in the NBA that you like that has been positive in terms of the last 180 days?
The NBA itself, which was very bold, came out with a statement condemning October 7th, which shouldn't have been so hard for the whole world to do, but a lot of people did not, which was very disappointing. So the NBA doing that really made me happy. LeBron put out a statement and left the comments on, which was really bold. And he got destroyed. I mean, till today, he's getting destroyed on that post. So the fact that he posted it and kept it was admirable because, like I mentioned, Kylie Jenner posted it and 5 minutes later deleted it because she couldn't handle the hate. Like, imagine what we deal with. The Knicks didn't, which was disappointing. I know the Spurs did, the Mavericks did. I don't think the Lakers did. But I noticed a lot of teams put out a statement. So I was like, wow, this is really nice. And in that moment, like I just said, I was like, wait, I thought I didn't like when the NBA got political, but now I do. So make up your mind, Emily. But that was very nice. You know, it gave me a feeling, like a lot of times Jews feel very isolated and like we're in this fight alone. So to see like my favorite sport come out with a statement saying we support you, you're not alone, I was like, wow, this is emotional for me. So
let's talk about the action, because you're about to embark on an action that I hope to partner with here at Sinai Temple and our Sinai Temple Israel Center. It's the Abrahamic Athletic Academy.
good job.
Just doing basketball is fine, but what you're doing is taking that next step, adding education and curriculum into this, bringing people together, bringing them all around the world, I believe, DC, the Vatican, and Jerusalem. How are we going to do this, and what's the dream behind that?
Oof, this is a long answer. So
that's why you're here for a week.
yeah. The Abrahamic Athletic Academy, if you asked me before October 7th, we could have just done basketball.
And we did that a couple of years ago. We had Christians, Jews, and Muslims in our Weinberg Gymnasium, and it was wonderful.
I just don't think it's enough anymore because the hate has been rooted so deep nowadays, and it's so easy to spread like wildfire on social media that someone needs to almost go and overly compensate for what they've been taught. So it's called like an activity-based curriculum, meaning you don't learn through textbooks and notes and boring videos. Rather, it's, have you heard of the yarn activity as an example? Like you sit with a Jew, Christian, and Muslim, and you're like, pass the yarn if your family's been impacted by October 7th. Suddenly you'll see the Muslim and the Jew, and they both pass the yarn. You're like, wait, okay, this is interesting. Or, you know, pass the yarn if you have a brother. Like everyone's gonna pass the yarn, and you find similarities. And we have a million activities like that. Nice. A little more intensive ones for the high schoolers, like more leadership and social media, advocacy based. But we wanna make it intriguing for the kids, stimulating, encouraging healthy dialogue. And then once you're done with that hour curriculum, you go play basketball for 2 hours. So you got the boring stuff out of the way. You're a little bit stimulated more, and now you're teammates. You have one goal, win. So if that wasn't enough of an incentive to join, we've had partnerships and programs. I guess I'll tell you about it now. There's a group called United Way that they do great work all over the globe. We've partnered with them that when the students are done with our academy, they're going to go to United Way for a year or two, where they're going to find their interests, their hobbies, and try to set them up with like real world jobs, internships, community building, and they're great at doing that. Second thing is we have an ambassadors program, which the most, I guess you could say open-minded, promising students secularly will be selected, 3 per each city, 1 Jewish, 1 Christian, 1 Muslim student, and they will get a chance to go to DC. And we've modified it a bit. So they're going to go to DC for a week. They're going to meet all the politicians, like think tanks, museums, a lot of fun. And it's cool because now we're not just telling you to coexist. Like, you're on a trip for a week. Like, you don't want to share a room, too bad. Right. You know, so that's another thing for the smart students, I call it. And then Enes was like, what about the athletes? What if I want to find the next Kobe Bryant here? So this is very cool. We have the Abrahamic Cup. We are opening this in multiple countries, as you know. So South Africa, London, Greece, Germany. And ultimately what we'll do is 10 students from each country will assemble a team. So Team USA, Team South Africa. And we spoke to Jared Kushner's people who promised us, big promise, that they will help us open in the Abraham Accords countries. So Morocco, Bahrain, UAE, Dubai. And they will have a chance to assemble their team. They will train for 3 weeks in Beersheva, which is 7 minutes from Abraham's well.
Yep.
And they're going to be in like almost a kibbutz environment for 3 weeks, like training, learning, cooking together, taking field trips together. And for the final week, they go to Jerusalem where they actually compete. Friday night is when it ends, like the winner is Thursday. Friday night, we do a Shabbat dinner awards ceremony for whoever won. And like, you know, we'll give everyone a participation trophy. But I think that's really how we can create like long-lasting friendships globally. Like if a kid from Morocco befriends a kid from Greece or Israel or America, I'm sure they're going to exchange Instas and become friends. And I think that's
Instas, I like that.
Better.
That's the way to say it these days, right?
Insta.
Sorry, I'm a little old here.
Do you say Twitter or X?
I say like Facebook, not Meta. That's amazing, actually. Last year, I had David Hollander, who wrote the book How Basketball Can Save the World.
Wow.
Who literally talks about this, that it can't just be the ball. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but James Naismith, the founder of basketball, you know what his original profession was?
Is he a doctor?
A doctor in religion, in ministry.
No way.
And he took his ministry onto the court. And so what you're doing is basically following, I would say, the original intent of this actual game. Actually, last year, Coach Bruce Pearl, also a friend of our community from the University of Auburn, maybe Kentucky, we'll see what happens this week.
No way.
His name's in there, we're hoping for you, Coach Pearl. But he also took his team to Israel and to Dubai and did this Abraham Cup as well. Just want to talk about an incident that did happen last year, and of course that was the Kyrie Irving incident, because it tainted perhaps basketball and the politicization. And during that time, I had the opportunity to go on media with Ernie Johnson and Charles Barkley, specifically on their podcast, The Steam Room. And this is what Ernie and Chuck asked me, and this is how I responded, and I would love to see how you responded in your own way dealing with the NBA. So this was The Steam Room.
To Chuck's point, from a distance, as you watched this play out, Rabbi, first thing that hit you?
First thing is to call out hate. Charles, as you said, your own daughter's married to somebody Jewish, and it hurts. It hurts not just in the mind, but it hurts in the heart and the soul. So to be able to call out hate is number one. We can all have conversations about race and religion, but in the sports world, there's out of bounds, and in the faith world, there is also out of bounds.
Out of bounds. What is out of bounds today? What is out of bounds, and what should we be dealing with?
I think intent is important. So, for example, the boy in Italy who actually thought I had a barcode, I don't consider him a hateful person. I don't think, he wasn't violent in any way. He shouldn't have been, crucified for that, I do believe, however, when it's clear that somebody's hateful with intent to harm, that's where you call it out, and that's where you deal with consequences. And unfortunately, not enough people who are hateful intentionally are met with consequences these days. Now, Kyrie, I'm almost still processing in a way because, first of all, I was his biggest fan. When he didn't get vaccinated, I was out on Twitter defending his choice, freedom of expression, freedom of religion. I'm like, let the man rock, you know? So I felt very betrayed when he storied that. And I was quick to go to the media, which I actually regret. I went on the media, I'm like, this guy hates Jews, blah, blah, blah. And I guess I don't regret it. But in retrospect, I truly believe he was misinformed. If you ask me, did he watch that documentary to the part that they denied the Holocaust? I'd tell you he didn't. That's just my opinion, my speculation. But what still bothers me today, and this is something like I'll never get over really, just his refusal to apologize. Even if you unintentionally hurt a community, right? Apologize. Hey everyone, my Jewish brothers and sisters, I understand I posted that. If I'm being honest with you, I didn't even realize, and I apologize. I didn't mean to hurt. That's it. Now, what was also unfortunate for Kyrie was it was the same week as Kanye's mental breakdown. So they were quick to bridge them together. And I think Kyrie's ego got the best of him in refusing to apologize. And then I mean, everyone hates me anyway. And I don't like how the Jewish community handled it.
Right.
I think that we were too, myself included, we're too quick to, I don't know, cancel. I don't like cancel culture. We were too quick to cancel him rather than educate him. Now, if he did willingly deny the Holocaust, we educate him. Because we can make an enemy into a friend, and you can make him an ally.
Right.
You know? And we didn't do that. We canceled him, and he also was nasty in his unwillingness to take responsibility for a mistake. I say a mistake because I think it was a mistake. I don't think it was intended to hurt us, but it did. And that's not even a clear answer. It's just like, I don't think it was harmful, but his lack of apology was. So it's still rude.
As part of that steam room episode, I said specifically that what was your answer, Rabbi? The answer is come and see our gymnasiums, play basketball with our children, teach them, be their teammate.
You have to teach.
And then realize who we are, and we'll realize who you are as well. In fact, 6 weeks before that incident and during the summer, there was an opportunity that he was going to be here with a fellow NBA player training. It just didn't work out because of schedule. And I thought, oh my gosh, if he had had that moment to walk in this room in the sanctuary and we had given him a tour of who we are, we would have had a much easier dialogue than just talking
it's not
about
too late.
him. And so it's definitely not too late. And hopefully, as part of our Abraham Athletic Academy, we'll see what happens. So to conclude, I want you to put yourself back. You just walked through our halls and saw our amazing school, Sinai Kibbutz Academy. You saw the children learning about Judaism, learning about Israel, learning about Zionism, and later on they're going to play lots of sports. Tomorrow we're going to have our initial opening, perhaps, of our Abraham Athletic Academy here. Put yourself back as a 10, 11, 12-year-old in this Jewish day school. What message do you want to send these children about the world that they are living in now and the world that they can live in by doing this work?
Ooh, it's a tough question, Rabbi, because that's your job.
It's a month of Passover. It's all about questions.
Yeah, Manish Sana. What I would tell these kids, and I saw them, they're very young. It's so cute, by the way, with their kippot. I would tell them that I know that they feel the light. Like from the couple of kids I saw, you see that they have like that light ignited in them and like in their Jewish identity because they're here. So how not? And I would tell them that life gets hard and they shouldn't, this is cliche, but like don't let the light burn out because we need it. And I would tell them to keep their pride, like no disrespect to my parents, but if your parents tell you to hide your Magen David or something, like keep it out. Because in my book, the alternative is that we all hide, which means we succumb to the hate, which means in a way we're compliant with the hate and we can't be. Like you just said, call out hate. Part of calling out hate is showing them that they can't and won't win. And part of that is showing, look, we're here to stay. And part of we're here to stay is this is my identity, and whether or not you like it, it's here. So that's what I mean. Like when I tell kids, even in college, like wear your Magen David, don't be afraid. Wear your tzitzit if you feel like it. Wear your kippah, if you feel like it. Don't let someone else's hate make you hide who you are. And I would tell them from this young, like it's really important to be proud of who you are, no matter what you are. I say the same thing to Christians and Muslims. Like I never try to convert them.
Right.
I'm like, if you're Muslim, you want to cover your hair, go ahead. Like if you're Christian, wear your cross. Like be proud of who you are. everyone hates when I say this. The only people I'm like iffy about are atheists. Because I'm like, how do you not believe in something bigger than you? That's so arrogant. You know?
Jewish atheists are the best.
Oh God, it's like an oxymoron. So anyway, be proud is my whole thing.
Be proud. That's what we're here today to do, to begin this journey in relationship with you, with Ennis, with the Abraham Athletic Academy. We are so thrilled that Emily Austin has joined us, social media influencer on Instagram. If you're not part of her 2.1 million followers, join the crowd, because you will not only learn, but you will be inspired of what it means,
Thank
not just
you.
to say, but also to do. Emily, it's so great to have you here at Sinai
Happy
Temple.
to join,
We're looking forward
finally.
to working together and doing this important work that will really not just have us live in the world that we are, but living in the world that ought to be. Thanks for joining us, Rabbi on the Sidelines. We'll see you soon. Have a great day.
That was awesome.